I am so pleased to have an opportunity to talk about world religions here in Kansas City because so many wonderful, exciting things are happening. And I think that our lives are deepened when we have a chance to encounter people from other faiths. Now, what I would like to do, I have goodies for everybody tonight, so we'll get to that in a little while, but I just want you to know I've got stuff in my bags here for you. I want to use a very simple method for trying to make the confusion about all the religions in the world fall into a pattern rather than into pieces. And so what I will do is ask the religions of the world one question, and then we will classify the religions of the world on the basis of where they go to find an answer to that question. And the question that I'm going to ask is, what is sacred? Now, by sacred, you probably, when I use the word sacred, you probably have different ideas come to mind. Could I just have a couple people, 3 maybe, say, when you hear the word sacred, this is not a test, there are no wrong answers. But when I use the word sacred, do you think of a place, or walking on the beach, or being with a friend, or a book, or what? What comes to your mind when you hear the word sacred?
It's like something that's the most important thing.
Once again, please.
Something that's like the most important thing to you, like a lot of people's family would be sacred to them.
Something that is so important
that you're willing to, I don't know, just the most important.
The most important thing in your life. And you gave family as an example of that. As a matter of fact, I once was involved in designing the curriculum for a program for high school kids. And in the beginning of the week, we wanted them to have an opportunity to get to know each other very well, very quickly. And so we asked them to bring, the very first session, to bring what we called a treasured object. We didn't use the theological term sacred, but a treasured object. For example, suppose your house is on fire, and you are able to get your family out, which is the most important thing. Then what do you take out next if you have just one more thing to bring? And they brought such a wonderful variety of things. It was really interesting to see these big football players bring the teddy bears that they had when they were a little kid, for example. And there were pictures of family or an aunt or a grandmother who had died some time ago. So sacred, something that is very important to you, maybe something that you'd be, willing to die for. We even have people in our country who, I'm not saying I agree with this, but they want to have a constitutional amendment that would make it illegal to desecrate the flag. The word desecrate, of course, is the opposite of sacred. It means to make unsacred. So for a lot of people, the flag is not just a piece of cloth. It represents something very important. Okay, so family is one example. Could I have 1 or 2 other examples? When you hear the word sacred, what comes to mind? Yes?
Church.
Once again?
Church. Going to church.
Church. Did you say church? Okay, that's a very a typical and excellent answer if you go to church. If you're a Jewish person, you might say synagogue. If you're a Sikh, you might say Gurdwara. If you're a Buddhist, you might say the shrine room, something like that. So a place where you go to worship would be very important. Okay, one other example, please. Yes?
Living things.
Once again?
Living things.
Living things. For example, particular people. Life itself is sacred. So that idea can have political consequences as well. If life is sacred, then how do you think about capital punishment, for example, or are you a conscientious objector? Or there are all sorts of ways of recognizing that sense that life itself is sacred. Now, I'm going to give you all of these answers are correct. They're fine. You might think of a sensory thing, something you see, something you touch, something you do. Like some people, when they pray, get on their knees. That might be a sacred thing for them. Or a smell, like incense in some religious sites. The technical definition that I'm going to use is very much like this gentleman back here proposed at first, and that is something that our life depends upon. So I'm going to ask the religions of the world, where do you go to find what your life depends upon, or where the meaning in your life derives from? Now, your life might depend upon your mom and your dad. Obviously, you come from them. But maybe the meaning also comes from your teachers. Maybe they also have or convey meaning to you. So let's put the word sacred on the board here. And the quick and dirty definition that I'm using for the purposes of our discussion, that on which my life depends, or another way of talking about it is the source of ultimate meaning.